So in this workshop, what we will be talking about is about becoming like Mark Zuckerberg. If you ever dream of becoming like someone like him, or someone who is extremely successful, someone who you admire, then this is the presentation for you. This is a series of workshops that we will be doing throughout the internship as a way of sort of helping you develop yourself outside of the work that we do at Reach Best. And this first workshop that we're doing together will be about secrets of being a student founder. And I will be sharing the founding story of Reach Best and all the secrets that have never been really told until now. And I want to start with a problem that I think we as students face. And it's the problem of not taking action. And what I've heard a lot of times is that, or what people tell me, or sort of on the limbo of whether starting a project, starting a startup, going after something big as a student. The first response, this first kind of response that I hear is that as a student, they want to focus on studying, not working. The second reason why people tell me that they're not pursuing a dream that they want is because they tell me that it sounds very difficult. It sounds like there's a lot of complexity. I don't know what to do, how to start. Maybe I don't have the skills, or I feel like I don't have the skills. I don't have the team. I don't have the support. That's the second response that I get. The third response is, and I think this one is one that I felt personally for some time, is that you feel like you're not old enough. And I think what that actually means is that you don't want to work yet because you've been told all your life that your teenage years or your college years are supposed to be about having fun before the real work begins. So in my case, I would not want to trade my playing video games time. And for other people, they would not want to sort of trade their time with friends, for instance. They feel like the teenage years are magical in a sense, and they feel like it's not their time yet. And the last one that I hear a lot is about feeling that you're not experienced enough. That while you're at school, you're still sort of learning and you don't have enough experience to sort of really put something out there in the world. And I think for me, what it really comes into is that the previous sort of like examples are stuff that we tell ourselves, but it's not the core. It's not the root. It's not at the root of why, as a student, you don't pursue your goal. And I think it all comes down to this idea of that you're waiting for someone else or something else to push you. And it makes sense because as a child, as you were growing up, you were being pushed around all the time in most families. So your parents would be the ones who are telling you how you should wear your clothes, what to eat, what not to eat. Your teachers are the ones that are telling you what to study, how to learn something. Then they're teaching you all the time. And most students, most people haven't had the chance or the privilege of trying out something for themselves, of pushing something for something consciously for long periods of time, working on a project that is bigger than yourself, that is longer than a day, a week, a month, a year, maybe 3 years, 4 years, working on something that takes time and effort. And when I was speaking at a school 6 months ago, I gave this slide of talking about that it's never too late to start. You know, people all the time tell you there's always this emphasis on, oh, it's never too late to start. You can always, it doesn't matter how old you are, or yeah, they always tell you it's never too late to start. But actually, I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it as a student, because this is actually delaying your idea or your drive to want to start something. And instead, I think we should think like this. It's actually never too early to start something. And the best example I can think of is Steve Jobs. When he dropped out of college, still very early in his career, to found Apple, so that after 2 or 3 years, they became a huge company. And he was still very young. And he had to learn a lot. But the point is that it's never too early to start. And in this presentation, my objective for all of you is I want to help you develop 5 things. And in this particular presentation, I want to work on the first bullet point, growing into your best self. That's what I want to help you develop in this workshop. And I've broken it down to 3 sort of stages. The first one is how to get started. The second one is what you're going to have to give up if you're a founder, for instance, or if you're just working on a project that is big. And thirdly, I want to give you some optimism and hope so that you can see how much the benefits outweigh the costs. And I'm going to talk about them in a minute. So starting with how to get started. And I actually want to, this is where, sorry, I want to talk about the founding story of ReachPath as an example, because I think it illustrates the point that I want to make. So very quickly, how to get started. I think there are 3 stages when you're trying to start anything. You want, first of all, a seed, then a catalyzer, and then you want sort of like consistency. And the seed is an idea. It's a spark. It's something that you find passionate, but you're not entirely sure if you want to pursue it. Then after that, you want to catalyze it. You want to accelerate the growth of that seed. You want to challenge nature so that the seed grows into a gigantic tree in a very short time. That's the idea. And once you've started this process of catalyzation, that's when you want to keep up your consistency, because you never want to fail, or you never want to give up on something. You never want to fail on a project just because you were not consistent, right? So basic discipline that they teach us as a child, just keeping that up, I think is very important. So starting with the framework now, let's actually apply it to a real instance. And for Reach Best, I started it in, well, it didn't start as Reach Best. The way that it started was that I graduated from grade 11 and I was moving to grade 12, to a senior in high school. And I was struggling with universities. So I was studying in Japan and I didn't know what university I should apply to. And I wanted to go out, I wanted to go abroad. And the problem was that there were too many options. I could go to the US, to Canada, to Australia, to UK, Europe. I could try looking for something in Japan. There was a lot of options. And it was very difficult to sort of like narrow down my options. So I spent the summer between grade 11 and grade 12 just researching a lot about universities to try to help myself sort of clarify my pathway a little bit more. And then there was another aspect that becomes very important later on, is that ever since I was, 8, 9 years old, I've always loved counseling and giving advice to other students. That's something that just came naturally, and I feel like I've developed it for over 10 years now. Just listening to people, understanding their problems, and then framing their situation in a way that helps them the most. I've been doing that for a long time. And there was a moment when I realized that after researching a lot about universities, well, I now knew a lot about universities and sort of how to decide on what kind of university you sort of want, and then knowing what you what you have to do in order to get in, a basic idea. And I was very passionate about counseling, so I decided to put them together. I combined my assets, so knowledge, and my passions for counseling. And in the summer, I decided to start what I called a high schooler run organization. And from sort of the second week of June to July, I spent 3 weeks building the foundation, figuring out sort of how it's going to work, what we're actually going to be doing. And at this point, there was nothing about being a startup in my mind yet. And I think it was until the first week of July that I decided to turn this high schooler run organization into a startup. Mainly because I felt that taking in money, I could sort of provide more goods and have more impact on the world than if I just did volunteering. So I decided to start a business, and then the idea of having a startup seemed very exciting. I had worked on a similar project when I was in grade 10, when I was developing an app for Epic Games. So I decided to give it a go. And on July 5th, Reach Best was born. I spent 2 or 3 days deciding on the name. It was something like Best Excel or Reach Excel or Student Excel. That at some point we were thinking of Best Organization. But after sort of a couple attempts, we landed on Reach Best. And what I quickly realized was that 45% of high school students claim to need more and better help with university admissions. And when I found out that statistic, it became very clear to me that, oh, okay, well, I guess this is perfect for me. I'll just give counseling about university admissions. So my startup started developing that aspect of how can we help solve this problem for 45% of high school students worldwide. After speaking with my dad a little bit, the first sort of idea was going to be, oh, I'll just like charge people for speaking with me, and then I can take them for like a coffee chat or something. But very quickly, I realized that no one will actually pay for a coffee chat if you're speaking with like a high school student. You know, there are problems with credibility, like what do you know, and why would I pay for like a coffee chat? So it needed to be a lot more robust than that. So I decided to build a product, a deliverable. How can you sort of synthesize something for the students so that it helps them very quickly? And when I was building the product, I focused on building something that was very useful for me. And this will become very important afterwards when I summarize the workshop that we will be using afterwards. Building something that is useful for yourself or for someone. That's usually the way that you want to start with anything, with any project. Why? Because that way, the probability that you will keep on working on this project or in this problem is going to be more than a year. basically by working on something that you're passionate about or useful, or you found useful, you're going to work on it a lot longer than if you're just building something that you find cool many times. And in my case, what I wanted was, I was having sort of a little bit of stressfulness and anxiety because of the university admissions. And I wanted to sort of relieve myself from that and sort of become stress-free, have less or no anxiety about university admissions. And what I decided to develop, among many other things, was this personal diagnostic, 2 graphs that tell you how you compare with the average admitted student. And why? Because that idea, that visualization really helped me feel a lot more stress-free, because it suddenly became very clear that, well, yes, there are certain things that I still need to work on, but you know how much you have to work on, how far behind you are, or maybe sometimes how far ahead you are from many students. It helps you clarify where you stand in the college admissions process. And then the other thing I decided to do was, because the most important thing is a deliverable, I'll make only 2 sessions. And then there was an idea, a dream of someday going global and helping more than 1 million students. Then on July 13, I don't know if Iker or Kenzo remember, but we launched Reach Best on Instagram. So this was a week after Reach Best was born. We decided, okay, let's just put something on Instagram. And during that entire week, I started posting on Instagram that, oh, we started this new organization. Fun fact, the first post only got 3 likes, and it was Omran, Mahi, and then me. So 2 friends and me. And I think that's important because many times when you, as a founder, or if you're looking to found something, many times you hope that people will just sort of love your idea and then instantly go after you, you know? But in reality, many times that happens is that, well, people don't really care that much that you started something. And it's not until it becomes big that suddenly they're like, oh, okay, maybe I should start looking into that. So that's just something to sort of keep in mind as a student founder. And we decided to charge 3,000 yen, which is about $30. And we made it student to student service. And we began first consultations. And what I remember from my experience about doing this was, or looking back, I think something that was very important that I was just very fortunate to sort of adopt while it was running was this idea of sort of playfulness, that I'm doing this for fun. Because afterwards, when I started struggling with some parts, getting rejected with some clients, or having a hard time with parts of the product, I would always remind myself that, oh, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this for sort of learn, to develop myself, to enjoy. And I think that's something that really helped me as the years have passed. It's been 2 years already. So that's an important part you definitely want to adopt as a student, because you're still in the process of exploring different paths for you. And if you're building something that is going to be long-term, especially if you're not going to be getting paid, then you definitely want to work on something that you're very passionate about and you would be willing to do it no matter the outcome. And then sort of fast forward a little bit, by July, August of 2020, so it's been like a month or 2 since we began, we started testing the services. I tested it with myself to see if it makes sense. Then I tested it with my younger brother. He was a little bit annoyed by it, but we tried it with him. Then I started reaching out to friends and their friends of friends. There was a lot of initial rejections, people who ignored my messages, but there was a few who responded. And I think those have become very key, such as Kenzo and Iker, who were on the webinar. So they helped out a lot in the beginning, sort of with the pilot test and sort of runs. And by August, we had managed to test the services with like 7 students. And then some of those were already paid, or most of them were, we had already sort of some sort of income. And it was at this moment when I saw that, or I felt that I was able to have an impact on students' lives, that I committed to the idea of the project and sort of helping Reach Best grow as an entity that transcends myself. So achieving success early on is definitely something that is very important, because it helps you commit very quickly. And to sort of summarize that first part, I think getting started is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do if you ever want to start something on your own. And if I was to sort of give quick advice on how I would go about it if I was to start again, it's probably easier at the beginning. So at the beginning, what you want to focus on is you want to get started and just do something and launch it. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It doesn't matter if people will love it or like it even, or they might even hate it. But the important thing is launching something, putting something out there, because the moment that you do, then you're already playing. You're already on the field doing something. You want to get in the field as fast as you can. And what I found is that the easiest way to do that is to work on something that combines your assets, what you're good at, and your passions. The second part is, which is sort of an emphasis of the first bullet point, is you want to make sure that you work on something that you're passionate about. Because you're looking as a founder or as someone who's working at an early stage sort of project, you're looking to build something that is going to last a long time. So you're going to have to be there for a long time. So the best way to sort of like have the best time as you're sort of going about building this first structure is to work on something that you like. And then the third thing is envision yourself pursuing this project, this venture. Then 4th, commit to it. And 5, transform yourself. And this is the part where I also want to emphasize the spoken but not so spoken part of things, right? As Steve Jobs would say, but it isn't all romantic. You're gonna have to handle a lot of things as the person with the idea, because the truth is that you're the one carrying the torch. If you don't move forward, no one else is going to move the torch forward for you. You have to take responsibility for that. And you have to set the example. The way that I like to picture it is you're going to be holding the torch, and then people around you are just going to walk next to you. But only one person carries the torch. And there's going to be 4 things. You're going to have to handle rejections, self-doubt, pressure, and the idea or the feeling of being responsible for other people. And many times what happens is that you're going to have to choose to give up 1 and focus on 2. And this is, I think, what happened with me. So what are you willing to give up temporarily? Temporarily, quote unquote. First was sort of extracurriculars and academic studies. I'm someone who likes studying. I like going to school. And when you start working on a project like Reach Best, then you have to sort of give away some of the time that you spend on academics or extracurriculars. The other picture is me in student government. The second thing is hobbies. So going to ski, playing soccer, playing video games, watching movies, relationships. So the time you spend with friends, that's something that you're also going to have to think about, because you will have to give away some of the time that you spend with them. And then, of course, family. And then to sort of like encapsulate the idea that even though you're going to have to give away for this kind of stuff for a couple of years or several years, you will end up winning a lot more, and you will be extremely happy, and the people around you are going to be extremely happy for you. So for instance, in my case, by 2021, I had already sort of been invited to give a talks on 2 organizations. Around 2021, 2022, we started hiring interns to start working. So we started developing a team, a culture. We've run at this moment 4 internships. We got into the Berkeley Skydeck Incubator program, the Path 13 program here at Berkeley, which is highly selective, and it's been wonderful. And then 2022, very recently, also again invited to talk at another organization there on the left, and they actually wrote an article about me that it's now on the internet. Well, not me only, but I appeared on the article. And then I already participated in an expo to showcase Reach Best to the world. And sort of hard data, again, on what you might be feeling very proud about is that after you work on something for such a long time, you're gonna see the benefits to start popping out to you. So we have had the privilege of working with students from different countries, Japan, Mexico, the US, for instance. And the students that we work with are incredibly happy about the program. And they're seeing very good success rates at the moment. And I think the biggest part is the personal transformation, moving from the left, where it's just an idea, to going to an organization that is already bigger than you, and how that changes who you are as a person is very valuable. So now I want you to dream. Who do you want to be 10 years into the future? You can dream being someone like this person, but you can, and I want you to visualize it. Really think about it. What do you want to achieve by the time you graduate university? What do you want? What would be your dream job right after you graduate? What position do you want to hold 4 or 5 years after you graduate? And you can start thinking, oh, I want to be the CEO, I want to be the CFO, I want to be the director, I want to be a super recognized employee, super high paid employee. I want to be someone who is directing a whole organization that is leading amazing positive impact on the world. But you want to first, or like for instance, in my case, one of my dreams is, of course, with Reach Best, we want to grow into a huge organization so that we can be helping over 100,000 students every year. But also, I still have pursuits in the academic space where I feel like I can contribute also in the academic arena, maybe the Rhodes Scholarship, maybe doing masters, a PhD, right? But you first think of the future vision, and then you work backwards from there. And then with that, I finished my side of the talk, and then we can start talking about questions with everyone.
I think I would like to know how you found out that you have to become a startup. I mean, in which moment you realized that you were seeking for a startup and not only like a high school project or something else? I don't know.
Yeah, so like moving from the high schooler run organization to startup. I think the way that it happened for me was that I think that's a great question. I think the way that it happened was that there was a moment when I figured that maybe I think it was very strange because for me, when I thought of startup, the name was just the name. I think it started as a name. Initially, when I called it, because at the beginning, I didn't know what to call it, right? I knew that I was building something, but I didn't know if I'm building a company, am I building an organization, am I building a nonprofit, am I building a startup? And then as I was thinking through that process, the name that I thought it was coolest was startup. So I decided to call it startup. I think that's how I started at the beginning, just like the name startup sounds cooler than organization. So I decided to call it, okay, Reach Best Startup. And I think it was as time progressed, as I started finding out more about the startup world, when I started listening to the talks of Gary B, I started listening to what Bill Gates, what Steve Jobs had to say, Mark Zuckerberg. I started watching movies about entrepreneurship. And as I started sort of like learning more about it, I got more engaged and involved in it. And with time, I slowly committed to the idea of, okay, we're building what we call a startup. But yeah, that's a great question.
Yes. I have another question.
Uh-huh.
Do you have like a secret or the key to like keep going with your project? Because sometimes it happens that I have a project and suddenly I say más rápido dice el Kenzo. and at some point I say, I just stop doing what I'm doing. I get bored or I just lost interest. What's the key for like keep focus on what you want to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great question. This has come up a lot in the other talks. I think from what I've seen with other people, I'll start with what I've seen with other people, and then I'll tell you what I do. With other people, what I've seen is that when they think of working for something, for a project, for a startup, for an organization, for a cause, many times they think of it as an extra, right? They think that, yeah, it's an extra, it's a surplus.
Yeah,
right?
and
It's
like
something that it's not part of your daily habits. It's something that they think, oh, if I have extra time, then I will work on it. When that happens, then I've seen that it's not uncommon for them to sort of stop working on it after some time. I think what I've done for me was when I was thinking about sort of developing and working on Reach Best, I always thought of it as part of like my daily routine, as something that I would do as if it was like playing video games. So as growing up, I used to play a lot of video games, and then I used to play 6 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, maybe, I don't know. And the only thing that I did was, okay, I'm gonna play 3 hours video games, and then I'm gonna work or play on Reach Best 3 hours. And I think for me, Reach Best was always very fun, and I saw it as a video game in a sense. And that's, I think, something that helped me keep going. Maybe another tip that I would say is that has helped me is I would watch motivational videos on YouTube, for instance, where I would read motivational sort of chapters, excerpts from books that would help me remember why I started this in the first place and help me regain the inspiration. I think that's something that also helped me a lot.
good.
No, yeah, but very, very good questions. I think those are very important. What about Kenzo?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions actually. The first one was back at the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about time. It's a factor like looking at things like in the long term, but sometimes it's kind of hard, right? Like visualizing, for example, Reach Best in 5 years. What do I want to do? And convincing yourself that you're going to get there. So, like, what's the process you've been going through just to kind of visualize? Oh, I want to do this by this time, and that's what I'm talking. Oh, like to materialize those thoughts in the present, rather than just keeping it in the future.
I think I'll tell you where I learned how to do this. So there's a video that I really like, and I've watched it over 700 times already. I watched it yesterday, for instance, in the morning. And then the video is called, I don't remember what they called, but it's the 5 Rules of Success of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor and then governor of California, the guy from Terminator. And in that video, the first thing that he talks about as his first rule of success is you have to find your vision. And I think that one is very, very obvious to many people. But the way that he explains his story of how he found his vision, how he sort of grew up in sort of like a poor household, wanting to escape World War II defeated Austria, wanting to go somewhere else, and then finding out that there's this contest called Mr. Universe for bodybuilding, and how he started committing to that. That helped me a lot when I was thinking about any long-term project for me. And I think the key when you're trying to visualize yourself into the future is you want to think of milestones, right? So I would start, for instance, I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now is, so for instance, by 2033, we want to become, hopefully, a unicorn. So a startup that is valued at over $1 billion. And the important thing is not the goal that you set, but it's the steps that you pull from there to your current situation. So for instance, if I was doing the exercise with you, so by 2033, we want to be unicorn. So that means we need to be making around $100 million every year. And then if you think of how do you get to accomplish $100 million? That means we need to be operating, helping out 200,000 to 300,000 students every year. And then you think, okay, that's like, okay, very, very, very daunting, very overwhelming. So then you move backwards. What's a milestone before that? So the milestone that I'm thinking of right now is, okay, we need to first get to $1 million in annual revenue. In order to get to $1 million in annual revenue, what we need is like 2,000 or 3,000 students every year. And then from there, you start going backwards and you start thinking, okay, that sounds like another milestone. Before that, we need to, for instance, create the first economic, self-sustaining economic unit, which means that, before that one, you need to get to, or you could get to break even, the point where you're neither making money, extra money, or you're not losing money after you subtract all the costs from your business. So break even is another one. Then before that one, we need to create the minimum viable sort of like entity where you have someone from sales, consultants, someone from technology, and then a manager. And that way you have specialized teams that can work on different stuff, right? And you as a founder, you're not working on everything all the time. And then before that one, now I can get to the present, right? So what do I need to get to there? Okay, I need to get investors. I need to fundraise money so that I can hire people. What do I need to hire? What do I need in order to fundraise? Okay, I need to incorporate. So we need to make ReachBest a legal institution. We need to start testing out the go-to-market strategy. So like sales, we need to develop the technological side of ReachBest. And then when you start connecting all the dots forward, then you have created sort of like a logical chain of how you're gonna get there. And you can apply this to anything. So imagine like a relationship. Imagine you want to, for whatever reason, you're imagining, oh, maybe I could get married or like be married to this person for like 50 years. Okay, what do I need to get to be married to someone for 50 years? Okay, first you need to get married and then you need to not get divorced. Okay, what do you need to get married? Okay, you need to have known or have been sort of dating someone for like, I don't know, a year maybe. Okay, what do you need to do that before that? Okay, you need to have developed a relationship with someone. And then you start moving backwards. And the important thing is sort of developing this chain of thought that allows you to track whether you're on the right path. But that's an amazing question, I think. Very important.
All right. Well, I think that was a very good answer and a very useful way of saying things, I guess. Sure. Well, I will see it on the recording.
Yeah,
But I have another question that's actually kind of back to the sacrifices part. If we were to see the sacrifices as sunk costs, up to some point, I mean, they're sunk. You gotta forget about them, but at some point you made too many sacrifices. It must bother you. So how do you kind of deal in a way with it? Like, how do you stop thinking about those sacrifices as, well, sacrifices and start thinking about it maybe as investments, for example?
I think that's a very useful way of thinking about it. I've never actually thought about them as investments. Yeah, I mean, investments, maybe the language that you use when you think of sacrifice, it's different to call it a sacrifice than say, oh, you're giving it up temporarily. No, at least that helps me ease some of the sort of like doubt that it might spark when you say, oh, it's going to be temporary. Then you're like, oh, okay, then it's not too bad. And maybe the other thing that I would say is it's all about perspective, right? It's like saying, oh, you want to look at the bad stuff or you want to focus on the good stuff. You want to see the cup as empty or like half empty or half full. It's all about where you decide to focus on. And also having a bit of reality into the situation. So you probably want to work on something where the benefits definitely and contrastingly sort of outweigh the costs, right? So if you're working on something that maybe isn't as worthwhile, then maybe you shouldn't work on it. Although it's hard to tell always. It's very hard to tell whether whatever you're working on is gonna, like even with Reach Best, it's really hard to tell whether this is going to be successful and maybe I'm just waiting. Well, I'm never wasting my time, but I'm always learning. As long as you always win something, I think it's okay. And maybe the last thing that I would add to that one is, from a certain point of view, you're always losing. So if you choose to pursue the other path, right, where you don't work on a sort of like long-term project and you decide to sort of focus a lot on the present and sort of like relationships, family, what was the other thing? Your studies, extracurriculars, your hobbies, and sort of moving your way the way that most people would do, that's also totally fine. But what's important to recognize is that by choosing not to do anything, you're making a decision. Choosing inaction is a decision. And there's also sacrifices that you're making when you choose the other path. And that's when I think of it that way, then you're like losing either way. Then why not go for the one that I can win more in the long run? I think that's what helps me.
Okay, all right. I don't know if we are like short on time, but I actually do have an extra question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so on the startup part, like well, there's a lot of processes like the internships, like making the product, starting to conceptualize Rich Best, I think. But up to now, what's been like the hardest part of this whole process? But for example, I'm curious about how hard has the pricing been, because well, usually you expect firms to be price takers in this situation, but right now we're like kind of setting. Yeah, we may have gone backwards on the thing, but that's very interesting. I kind of want to know the train of thought behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So I'll first address the pricing thing, and then I'll tell you what I think has been the hardest thing so far. With the pricing, the way that I think about it is like the Matrix, one scene from the Matrix where Neo is seeing the spoon, and then the kid tells him, "Oh, there's actually no spoon." So the moment that you realize that whatever you're watching is no spoon and it's just your imagination. So applying that same thing here, it seems like from the outside that many companies, many businesses are sort of price takers, right? They're taking the price of the market and they're just putting that. And I think that's valid. There's no right or wrong answer. But at the same time, the idea of the market is very fictitious. It doesn't exist. And it's not that it doesn't exist, is how do you define what's the market? How do you choose which price is the right one? And I think when it comes to that, you start realizing that there's some flexibility to it. There's always reality, but there is flexibility, and you can bend reality to a certain extent. And yeah, I think with that's with the price. And for the hardest thing with the hardest thing with Reach Best, I think, has been the hardest thing is always people. Getting people into Reach Best, that's the hardest thing. So getting people to sort of buy Reach Best services is one thing, so getting customers, but also getting employees and getting people to help building a team. And then with both cases, retention, so making sure that whoever paid for the services actually shows up afterwards, and they sort of continue the service. And with the team, making sure that they continue working, and then as time progresses, it becomes even more exciting. There's just a lot of complexity behind human beings, so it's really hard to sort of like come up with a one-way approach that can fit all. So the hardest thing has been sort of adapting to people, I feel like. But very interesting questions, both of them. We can take one more question and then we can close it.
All right, let's end it on kind of a funny note, I guess. Like I could keep popping out existential dread questions or useful questions, but what's your favorite food? No, actually, scrap that. What's been your favorite experience on Berkeley up to now?
Oh, on Berkeley, yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite experience on Berkeley. Let's see if I can put one of the pictures. Favorite experience on Berkeley. This one was very fun. So let me just make sure that favorite experience. When you say favorite experience on Berkeley, can it be Reach Best related?
As long as it really is your favorite experience, it can be.
Favorite experience. Okay, I'll say something different, just for the sake of it. I think one of my favorite experiences in Berkeley was I think December of 2021. I don't remember like exactly when, but there was a moment when I received sort of like 3 very good news at the same time on the same day. And the 3 news that were amazing was, so we were doing the Reach Best market research internship. And the news that we got was we completed the collection of surveys of people who were answering a survey. And then we ended up collecting 66 survey responses from like a whole lots of places. So Singapore, Mexico, Japan, Canada, US, China. There was someone in Europe, like a lot of places. So that was a great news. And then we were going sort of the winter break after finishing that. And then after that, we would come back and continue working. So that was very good news. And then the second good news was my academic studies. So I was very worried that because I was working on on Reach Best, and I was doing also student government at the time. I was worried that my GPA, so like my grade, would drop very bad. I mean, it wouldn't be drop, but I would not start with like a strong grade in Berkeley. But then when I opened my sort of like management, the school management website, I saw that I got A in one class and A in another class, and I got A+ in Introduction to Entrepreneurship. I got A in Intro to International Relations, and I got A for Intro to Climate Change, and I passed. I did a pass no pass for a web design class. So when you added all that up, I got 4.0 out of 4.0, and it was on like the same day. So that was very, very, very exciting, and it completely changed the way that I felt about Berkeley. And then the third very good news was that we confirmed that I would be going for Christmas, that I would be able to go to be in Japan in Christmas with my family to like celebrate my birthday. And I think I was still in Berkeley, and then I talked about it with my friends, and it was a very, very good day, I think.
That sounds fun. Well, like a very good day, like 3 in 1. That's a great
3 in 1. Yeah, 3 in 1. That was a great day.
Amazing.
And then with that, why don't we close it here formally, so that the recording was not too long. So thanks everyone for listening. I will be seeing you in the next workshop. So see you next week, and then thank you very much. Kenzo, Iker, you want to say thank you?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
A good one.